And I have opened up the Q&A box, so if anyone has questions during this presentation, you're more than welcome to submit them there, and we will get to them. So let's start with introductions. My name is Mallory Perna. I am the Director of Off-Campus Engagement and Support at the Boston campus, and I'm joined by two colleagues today. Lexi, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Definitely. So my name is Lexi Hughes. I am Assistant Director of Programming and Education here in Off-Campus Engagement and Support. And I am happy to be here today for this presentation. I'll hand it over to Uma.
Hi, I'm Uma. I'm the co-op here in the OSIS office. So I'm just going to be hanging out in the chat and linking you to any resources that you might be asking about as the presentation goes on.
Thank you both. So yes, this presentation is being recorded for anyone that cannot attend today, and this is a follow-up to the university housing presentation. So many of you may have joined that one as well. So we're going to walk you through what our office does and how we can support you in searching for off-campus housing. So first off, this is where we're located. So we are in Spear Hall on the Boston campus. We can be reached by email, by phone. We have virtual appointments that can be accessed through our website. And our main functions are listed here on the right-hand side. So we do help students primarily with the apartment search process. So we do have our own Northeastern housing database that connects students directly to reputable landlords and realtors and helps assist students to connect with other students for roommates as well. We do a lot of education and guidance about lease contracts. Signing a lease is a big undertaking, as you can imagine. So being able to help students understand what they should be looking for in a legally binding contract, what maybe is a most salient clause that may impact your stay, and making sure that you understand what's legal or illegal, or maybe just not written in your best interest. So we like to do a lot of lease guidance with students as they're signing for an apartment. And then once students are moved in off campus is when a lot of our other services and support kicks in. We are here for students to help with any issues that arise by living off campus. And this can be anything from a concerning unresponsive landlord to maybe not getting a security deposit back, or just, small concerns between you and a roommate. So we are here for consult and advice. We have amazing resources that help connect you to the city of Boston as well, or to other Northeastern departments as needed. And then lastly, we have a team of community ambassador student leaders that all live off campus that help create programs, education, and do outreach to the many students living in the neighborhoods surrounding the Boston campus. So we have over 10,000 students very close, all living next to each other, and we want to be able to connect you both back to campus, but also to your local community. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to go over the apartment search process because a lot of people are wondering what that looks like and how it might compare to university housing. We'll go over budgeting for living off campus, tools to find an apartment, what you should be prepared for as far as viewing apartments, especially if you are not planning to come to Boston before you look at an apartment, how you can identify a safe apartment and a reputable realtor and avoid scams. So that's a big part too of looking for apartments while you may not be here. And then we'll go over additional resources we provide and the city has, and then we'll answer any questions in the Q&A box. So just a couple things to know about renting in Boston. It is a unique rental market compared maybe to other places you've lived. So there are many, many neighborhoods. Boston's a fairly small city, but the main neighborhoods touching our campus are Fenway, Mission Hill, South End, and Roxbury as well. So these are the places that many undergraduate students are focusing their search because it doesn't really involve much of a commute, and most of them are walkable to campus. The apartment search itself is very much controlled by realty agencies. So it's rare for a student to be working directly with the property owner. The property owner usually has a realtor or agency, sometimes called a broker, in place to find student tenants and to process applications and leases. Where they're just sitting back on the ownership side, or they might be your best point of contact once you move in, but you often are working with a realtor who does charge a fee in order to look at apartments, go on multiple showings, and ultimately gather all your paperwork and deposits. It's important to know that leases are usually 12 months in Boston. So while there are some short-term apartment rentals, they tend to be a little bit more expensive. Furnished tends to be expensive as well. Most students are finding that they're going to buy or rent furniture because getting something already furnished can be a lot of money. So most leases are 12 months. And so we'll go over a little bit about what subletting is, but subletting allows students some flexibility, as we know that Northeastern students like to move a lot. So having a lease that commits you to 12 months of staying in the same place can be challenging if you're going somewhere globally or going on a co-op outside of the Boston area. And then another unique part of renting in Boston is the upfront costs. So most places are going to require you pay first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, and a broker fee. And so this can add up to anywhere around like $5, $6, $7,000 before even moving in September. So it's important to kind of understand that the money required up front to live off campus is a little bit different than if you're going through the university housing process. So living off campus, you can expect that you may have to pay for utilities, internet, and furniture. So there may be properties that include one or some of these items, but that would be important to find out when you're looking at a listing or when you're in a phone call or going on a showing with a realtor. It may also take longer for you to get to campus. So there are students that live within a 5-10 minute walk, but there are many students that are walking 20 minutes or possibly even taking a short bus or T ride. So I would say Google Maps is a really great tool to use to actually see how long it's going to take you to get here by walking or public transit and not just relying on proximity and miles. There won't be any resident assistant staff on site off campus. So there isn't Northeastern staff placed in these off campus buildings. Instead, some buildings may offer on site security or different systems in place, but a lot of times students are living in, triple decker style houses or small brownstones, as we call them, where it's, you go through a front door and then through a vestibule to a more inner door, but there's not necessarily staff on site. So you won't likely have to sign in any guests, but there may be a guest policy. So many off-campus apartments require that if guests stay longer than 3 to 7 days, that you're getting advance permission in order to do that. So you're not like housing anyone illegally or causing an overcrowding issue. You might be able to have pets. Again, that's going to be based property to property, building to building. You likely can have a bigger bed or non-standard furniture. So, when you live in university housing, all the furniture is provided. Off campus, you're usually choosing the furniture. So you might have more options available to you. A lot of times students too are in single rooms off campus. So they might have roommates, but they have their own private bedroom, which can be desirable if you don't want to share your immediate, sleeping space. However, there might be additional fees or rules for your building. So similar to university housing, there's various rules for an apartment or a building. The same thing would happen off campus. There might be specific rules about noise, about smoking, about trash. So it's important to read and ask the questions that might be most important to you about what is allowed and not allowed. So as you're kind of planning for what are you looking for in an apartment? What's going to work best for you? Here's some questions to kind of ask yourself. The majority of you are probably looking for something that starts in September, and our apartment search season in Boston for September actually starts very shortly. So now is the time of year between February and March that most students start looking for off-campus housing. The reason being is that most listings are coming on the market right now because students had to decide if they were re-signing their lease and keeping their apartment or if they were moving somewhere else. So if you need something for September, it's, in the next few weeks is a great time to look. If you need something in the summer or more short term, you can easily afford to maybe wait a little bit longer because those tend to come up at the last minute sometimes when people decide what their summer plans are. Now is a great time to decide where you want to live. So doing some research about the neighborhoods, and we have great information on our website, and we'll go over some of the neighborhoods in this presentation. And then who do you want to live with? So once you know ideally what kind of commute you're comfortable with, how much the rental costs are in that neighborhood, figuring out, do I want one roommate? Do I want two? What's going to give you the best situation, both financially, but also from a living perspective. And then what is your budget? So speaking to your family or whoever might be helping assist you, a financial aid counselor, and determining what costs or what kind of funds are available to you and how much can you reasonably afford off campus. And that's not just for rent, but for possibly buying furniture, for commuting costs, for groceries. So there's multiple things to think about there. And then what are your plans for next year? Are you going to be in Boston for fall and spring, from fall through the summer, thinking about what terms of a contract might be most desirable to you, or if you do need a contract that allows subletting. And do you have a co-signer? So every student in Boston, because they don't usually have a full-time salaried job, is going to be required to have someone who will co-sign the lease with them, usually someone like a parent, a family member that will pay the rent if the rent is not paid by the student. So someone that has some kind of financial backing, a credit score that they can check would be most desirable. And then figuring out your form of transportation. As I said before, most students walk, but there's also a great public transit system here, and having a car is an additional cost or something to consider. So let's start with budgeting. I mentioned these briefly already, but those one-time expenses are important to know. So first and last month's rent are very common. So you're paying usually your September and August rent to your realtor upfront to secure the apartment, along with a security deposit, which is refundable if there's no damage after you move out. But this is usually equal to 1 month's rent. And then a realtor fee, which is often equal to 1 month's rent. And then sometimes there might be additional fees, such as a key or lock change, possibly a small application or credit check fee. Furniture would be something you would need to buy up front, whether it's used or new or renting it. And then moving expenses. Do you need a temporary place to stay before your lease starts on September 1st? Do you need to rent a truck? Do you need to do like a delivery of a mattress? Those additional costs are something important to think about. And then after your one-time expenses that are, all pretty much due before September, you have your monthly expenses. So, your October, November, December, all the rent moving forward, your monthly utilities, whether it's for heat, electricity, or if those are included, you don't have to worry about them. But if they're your responsibility, getting those set up and paying for them. If you would like cable, internet, setting those up, and then weekly groceries, regular monthly transportation costs, and then renter's insurance, which is highly recommended as it protects all of your personal belongings should something happen to your apartment. So whether there's a fire, a burglary, just water damage, if you all of a sudden need a new laptop, a new mattress, whole new wardrobe, it's very helpful to be able to submit an insurance claim to have those things paid for. And renter's insurance is generally very inexpensive. So to figure out your budget, you're looking here on the left-hand side of the slide to figure out what is your income, whether that's a semester income, a annual, or you could break it down by month, might be easier. But what is available via your family or savings accounts? If you're going on co-op in the future, will you have actually some kind of money coming in every week that you could use? Same thing maybe with work study or financial aid. So determining after you pay for your classes and your tuition, what may be available through your financial aid package to then contribute to your off-campus housing expenses. And that would be a great question for your financial aid counselor. And then here on the right, our recommended way of actually paying your bills, right? You have your lump sum of money you've just decided on each month based on the items here on the left. You're paying your rent first, you're deducting then approximate amounts for utilities. Then of course you're gonna have to pay for food, and then everything else, like if you're saving for, a dialogue or a study abroad experience or spring break or a fun things, going to the movies or going out with friends, just being able to figure out how much extra money you're going to have, if any, and if you're not, how are you going to manage these expenses for a full year? So we always hear from students how important it is for them to save money, given that Boston is not a very cheap city, right? It's one of the most expensive cities in the US. So cooking for yourself can save a lot of money. Taking out food from a restaurant instead of having it delivered and avoiding all those fees is also a good way to go. We have a lot of students that are always getting rid of their furniture when they're leaving Boston. So figuring out a way that you can buy used furniture, not a mattress or something that's been outside, like a couch that's been outside because it could harbor pests, but something like a desk or a chair or, an organizer or something would be really helpful. Skipping expensive decor, all those Target trips tend to add up, but if you just get what you need, you can save a lot of money. And making sure that you're staying on top of your monthly bills, especially your rent, to avoid any late fees or legal notices, because those can really add up over time as well. Being efficient with your utilities, including good light bulbs, but keeping your heat at a reasonable temperature, but maybe putting on an extra sweatshirt instead of increasing the thermostat, and using public transit or our bike system here in Boston, or even if you have your own bike, bringing it here versus more expensive options such as Uber or Lyft, because again, those start to add up as well. There are tons of free and discounted events at Northeastern, and there's student discounts throughout the city too. If you have your ID card, you could always ask. So now that you know a little bit about how to start your budget and how to think about saving money, I do want to share, and I apologize, this image is a little blurry, the average rental costs in a lot of neighborhoods. So I mentioned earlier that many neighborhoods such as Mission Hill, Roxbury, Fenway, and the South End, these are all very close to Northeastern. You can see based on whether it's a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or increased from there, what the total rental cost is. So you can see in Mission Hill, a lot of students might be paying closer to $1,100 a month for their room, up to $1,500, where other communities are going to be more expensive. Fenway, given that it's so close to Northeastern, and it also has many more newly constructed buildings, you might see larger rent costs here. So this is a great comparison. It is on our website. Now, when you start looking for an apartment, I want to go over the tools that we have once you kind of identify your neighborhood. So these are the neighborhoods near campus that I mentioned earlier, and you can kind of see Northeastern really is in the middle of a lot of different neighborhoods, and you can walk among all of these. Boston's very flat, so it's nice to walk. And the little black dots that you're seeing here are transit stops. So you can see all these transit stops go this way towards downtown. You're going to see more affordable rates as you head outside of downtown. So it just depends on your budget and how long of a commute you're willing to do. You'll also notice that these transit maps here are showing you the subway lines. There are also bus lines that you're not able to see here, but you could see on Google Maps. So somewhere like Roxbury or over here in the South End is going to be serviced by a bus line, not necessarily a subway. So the Northeastern Housing Database is our starting point for you when it comes to finding housing. So this would be apartment listings, open room listings, sublet listings from other students, roommate profiles, so you could find actually fellow students that you might want to live with, or they might have an open room already in their apartment. And then a list of resources, such as a list of agencies. So instead of, looking through many listings, if you just wanted to call 3 places and see what they have, you could take that route as well. And there's a lot of great features here as far as being able to create, your ideal place and save a search and be sent emails regularly about what's meeting your needs. You can also look at video tours, plenty of photos of places, and then it gives you direct access to personally message realtors or fellow students. So once you are able to log in and you log in with your Northeastern credentials, you are able to easily see the map here with all the listings, and on the right-hand side, open up the listings with the pictures. So up here on the top, there are tons of ways to filter. So you can filter by price, by type, by short-term contract versus a long-term contract. So you can look for all types of things. So you don't want to necessarily over-filter to where you're only getting one item, but you can kind of narrow your list down. And you can see here that Northeastern is situated right in the middle, so you could always zoom in and see what's closest to here. So we recommend that everyone go in, create a roommate profile. You can also filter roommate profiles as well. So after you've created your roommate profile, you can actually search by people that have a place already, people that need a place, maybe like yourself, for which semester. And if you have preferences as far as gender, lifestyle, if you want to even search by keyword like vegetarian, you can do that here, which is nice. And this section of the website does actually connect you to students at other area universities, not just Northeastern. So these 3 students, of course, are Northeastern, but you would also see Boston University students here or Suffolk University students here, which can be a nice option if you're looking to just have a bigger roommate pool to choose from. In addition to the database, we have a Viva Engage community, which is previously called Yammer, but it is very much like a Facebook group. It functions a lot that way. It makes it nice because instead of going to Facebook where you don't really know who you're talking to, everyone has to log in with their Northeastern credentials, so it's connected to your Northeastern account. So you know that you're able to connect to somebody that is currently enrolled at the university. And we have actually oversight over this page as well, so we will use it to share information throughout the year with students. But this is a great place to go to get advice from other students living off campus or to look for something last minute maybe. Okay, so when it comes to viewing listings and signing leases, we do have some best practices to share with you. So we want everyone to actually look at an apartment before they see it. And if that's not, ideally that's walking through it yourself, right? But if you can't walk through it yourself, are you able to send someone that you know locally on your behalf? Can you schedule a live video walkthrough with the realtor? This just helps to make sure that what you're seeing as far as the photos online meet the current condition of the apartment. That can be extremely important because sometimes when apartments are changing hands and different students are moving in every semester, not everything looks the same as when the photos were taken a year or 2 ago. So we want you to be thorough in your apartment search and ask questions. We have great checklists on our website that will give you some recommended questions to ask. So things like, are the appliances included? Is there laundry in the building? Does it cost money to use that laundry in the building? Are utilities included? And if so, which ones? And making sure that whatever verbal promises you're getting, eventually make it in writing into your lease. And we always recommend seeing multiple apartments instead of just seeing one and taking it, right? So making sure you're seeing multiple options, discussing that with your roommates and your family members so you can choose something that's going to be the best for you the whole time that you're going to be in Boston. And a couple safety issues or features, I guess I should say, to look for. You want to look for an apartment that's clean and sanitary. If it's not being well kept now by the current students or management company, it's likely not going to be given to you in great condition. So look for that in pictures and in videos. Making sure that there are working smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. That should be visible in a video or a walkthrough, especially, or you could ask them to show that to you. There should be safe roof and alley access. Ideally, you're never accessing a roof, but making sure that you have two exits from the building is important. If you can't see this from a walkthrough, it could be something that you check upon move-in that's required as far as housing code. Making sure that the lobby is secure, there's good lighting. Again, these things are easier if you're in person. So going back to sending someone in your place if you can. And then a reminder to get renter's insurance for any surprises that could happen while you're staying there. So there's a couple different types of leases. I'll go over what's in a lease as well. So the majority of leases are 12-month leases. The sublets are usually by semester. So a student might say that they don't need their apartment in the spring because they're going away for co-op in Texas, let's say. And so they will get another student to move in and sublet the apartment. So it doesn't change anything on the contract or lease side, but this does mean that someone else is paying and living in your apartment while you're away. And then month-to-month leases mean that every month you pay and decide if you want to keep them going. But these are few and far between in Boston, and sometimes they're pretty expensive, sort of in line with like a short-term or a vacation rental, where they might be great for 1 or 2 months, but they're not going to be something you're going to want for a long period of time just because of the cost. So, what is a lease? It is a legally binding document between you and the landlord. And so, it's really important to understand that part that everyone that's on that lease, you and your roommates are all jointly liable. That means you're seen as one entity, right? So, if one of your roommates doesn't pay the rent, you're all seen as being late on the rent. So, making sure that you're choosing good roommates and you're making sure that everyone that's living in your apartment is on the lease is imperative. And then your lease is going to not only give you the basics, how long you're living there, who owns the property, who to call for maintenance. It's also going to outline all the other terms of the apartment. So can you sublet? Can you not? Who pays utilities? Which utilities are included? So you can see here in the middle, these are all the things that absolutely need to be on every single lease contract. So you should have a very clear idea of who owns your property, how you contact that person, and who's allowed to live in the property. The addendum is usually attached to the lease, and sometimes this is 1 page and sometimes it's 30 pages. But this is where you're going to find a lot of the really interesting information, such as is there parking? What are the specific rules around maintenance? What do I need to know about if I find pests in the apartment? Are there certain fees or violations if I put the trash out incorrectly or if I get a noise call? So just you might want to be really thorough when it comes to reading the addendum. Like who's responsible for snow? That should always be your landlord. But if it says in there it's you, that might raise a concern and you might want to be able to bring that up to your realtor. You could always request changes or try to negotiate things in the addendum. And sometimes students are successful at this, sometimes they're not. It varies greatly depending on who owns the apartment. So what makes a trustworthy realtor? So we talked about how most places in Boston really are managed by a realty company when it comes to the apartment search process, that you're dealing with a realtor before you ever move in. And once you move in, then you're on to move, like communicating with your landlord or property manager. So we always recommend starting with our realtors that are on the NU housing database because of those who actually have a track record of working successfully with Northeastern students, parents, families. You could always choose somebody else, but you would probably want to do your due diligence and make sure you're reading reviews, getting referrals, and making sure that they're licensed. A good realtor will always explain their fees up front, what their services, like what they provide as far as, they're going to collect these payments, they're going to show you these apartments, they're going to help you with the paperwork, and they should give you appropriate due dates for when anything is due. So you want a realtor that's responsive, and you want a realtor that's also responsible and following, the state and local housing codes. They should be showing you things that meet code. They should be showing you, properties that are in alignment with the state sanitary code. They should also show you actual available properties. So they shouldn't be showing you like one property all the time and then saying, oh, that one's gone, but we have another one. That might happen later in the apartment season when things are getting signed quickly, but ideally, whatever they show you is what you're actually signing for. So should you have concerns, please bring them up to our team. All realtors that we have on our database have a physical office location, many of them right here in Boston. They should have a phone number, they should have a working email address. So if you ever are saying, is this realtor worthwhile? Is this a scam? I always ask students if they just call the phone number. Like, does it work? Can you talk to this person? And are they responsive to you? And we have a great apartment hunting checklist on our website that I mentioned earlier. So please check out our website if you want to dive deeper into any of these topics mentioned today. We also have a rental scam section of our website. So over here are just some ways to avoid rental scams if you're looking from far away. So I mentioned seeing a place in person and not signing anything or sending any money until you actually can verify the listing exists. And we have great tools on our website to walk you through this. So everything from verifying the realtor to checking the address listing with the city of Boston, to even looking at a problem property list, because it might be a real property, but it might have it might have a history of problems. And never wiring money to anyone that you haven't like spoken to on the phone or met in person. You want to be able to verify that you know where the money is going, no matter how small or how large of an amount. So things like Western Union are not as easily traced as something through like a secure bank to bank transfer, or even utilizing a credit card to do a down payment if you can, because those offer fraud protection. You want to read through your entire lease before signing it and making sure that there's no incomplete language, ambiguous language, or illegal fees. Something a lot of scams have in common are ambiguous language that doesn't make sense, or things that are just outside the norm. So things like, oh, once you arrive at the apartment, if you don't like it, you can have all your money back. Sort of that like easy refund experience. That's not normal, and definitely a red flag. We also recommend you don't share a ton of personal information like your social security number until you can verify who you're working with and how that person's using it. A social security number is often only used to do a background or credit check. So they shouldn't be keeping that on file. They shouldn't need it for any reason until maybe that application period. And it's likely needed more for your co-signer than for you as a student. And going back to confirming the listing actually exists, it says flip this card over. That was a copy paste from a card we were handing out the other day, but we can walk you through that, and there's tools on our website. So being able to look up the address and actually see who owns it and if it's a registered rental property in the city is going to help clarify that for you. So just going back to our recommended timeline, because we get this question a lot about when do I start? Now is a great time to kind of start looking for off-campus housing. You don't have to sign something right now, but just being able to figure out, okay, if I do this, if I choose to live off campus, who would I live with? Who else wants to do this? What is my budget? What is my family able to contribute? What am I able to contribute? What does my financial aid package allow me to do? And what are my housing needs? How close do I need to be to campus? Do I need to have roommates? Do I not? What's going to work best for you? And so talking to your family, talking to your potential roommates to determine what's available. And then once you have that baseline of how much you have to spend, who you're going to be living with, and maybe where you want to live or what type of housing you need, then you can move forward to looking at listings, contacting realtors and property managers, possibly directly working with an owner to view apartments, right? So then you're looking at apartments, you're getting an idea of what's currently available so you can make a decision about where you want to live. So from February to March, it's a great time to look at apartments. And then as soon as you know where you want to live and you've narrowed it down to your top choice, you're going to complete an application to verify that you can afford the apartment. This is where your co-signers come in. And not just your co-signers, all your roommates as well. Once you have been verified financially that you can afford the apartment, then they're going to send you a lease to sign. And that lease is what makes everything contractually confirmed. So after the lease signing point, at the application point, you're pretty much locked in, but the lease signing point is where everything is solidified. And that's when you know that you have an apartment for next year, when you have a copy of an executed lease. Once you have your lease squared away, then you can relax for a minute, and not until maybe a couple months later as we get into summer are you really looking at planning your move, taking a deep dive into your lease if you want to know specifics about like picking up your keys, figuring out trash, figuring out if you can bring your pet. And scheduling movers and any assistance there can happen later in the spring or early summer. So that's your timeline. And September 1st is our big move-in day. So almost everyone is doing everything in preparation for September 1st. So moving out of the apartment search section of our resources, we do want to let you know that Northeastern also provides a lot of other resources to students living off campus. So not only is our office available to you, but everything at Northeastern, right? So everything from the library to university health and counseling. So there are great safety and security components to our campus. So we have NUPD that works closely with Boston Police. So if you ever need a ride home to your off-campus apartment, on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the red eye, but Northeastern Police can help escort you to a nearby transit stop if you want someone to walk you to the green or orange lines on our campus at night. So there's a lot of great ways for you to register your property, learn about how to commute safely in the city from our Northeastern Police Department. There's also a discount transit pass available through the MBTA. So MBTA is, we call it the T for short. It is our transit system. So they have student passes, but you purchase them through the university in order to get the college student discount. So that might be something that you're interested in if you're going to be commuting to class every day. And then there are dining plans available if you choose to do so. So if you're someone that wants to come to class on campus and utilize a dining hall, a dining plan might be a good fit for you. There also are places to eat on campus that you could just use standard, a debit card, credit card, or cash. And then there's commuter lockers on campus. So those are located in the tunnels around the Curry Student Center and in the library. So you can sign up for a free locker should you find that you're going to be on campus a lot during the day. Those become available online on the first day of class. And you can also reserve study rooms. So we have a library, we have many little pockets around campus you can study, but you can also reserve study spaces. And the red eye I wanted to mention more in detail because this is something that's highly utilized by off-campus students. It leaves from the library and takes you to your off-campus apartment as long as you are within 2 miles of campus, which covers a lot of Boston. So this is something that you would have to sort of reserve a little bit in advance. So if you're at the library one day until like 10 p.m. and you know you want to leave by like 11 p.m., you may want to book it a few hours early, especially if the weather isn't good, because a lot of times students want to take advantage of this ride when the weather is bad instead of walking home. And it's a great option if you ever don't want to walk home alone at night. It's great if you can walk home with a roommate, but that's not always an option. And getting back to some of our resources, we do have a newsletter that you can sign up for now if you wish to do so. It's on our website. The articles are written by our student team. So these community ambassadors are peer educators, similar to any other student living off campus. They have been through the apartment search process. They have great tips to share about living off campus. And so they create programs and engagement opportunities and also run our Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, please follow us at NU Off Campus. Here is our information again, should you need it. So we're located in Spear Hall. We have everything available on our website here at offcampus.sites.northeastern.edu. So if you would like to book a virtual appointment, send us an email or phone call, please do so. We'd be happy to answer your specific questions. And we have, again, Instagram, also Facebook at NU Off Campus. We also created an apartment search toolkit recently. So Lexi, who introduced herself earlier, has created this page that's truly dedicated to just the apartment search. So if you're someone that definitely wants to take next steps in looking for an apartment in Boston for the fall, I recommend, taking a snapshot of this QR code so you can go check this out later. It's going to lead you to all kinds of resources that I mentioned, but also upcoming workshops that take a deeper dive into the apartment search process. All right. So with that being said,